All right, here we are. Everything seems to be pretty good. I don't really want to make this video right now, but I feel it's pretty important. But welcome back to the Flow Show. It's been a long time. It's been a couple years. I've been taking a break, focusing on this community home that I run. Don't make it out to be something crazy. It's just like a group of people that live together, that we do things together sometimes and have amenities that are shared, blah blah blah. Yeah, I'm making this video right now because I feel it's very important to express what I feel is important for me to be seen. I know a lot of people, and for me to go through this process with each and every one of them is a lot of time and energy, and it's just not really something I'm willing to do. And a struggle I've been finding lately is that I don't really feel seen, and I wouldn't take that personally. It's definitely partially related to me being able to share parts of myself easily, and being a complex individual that I am. It's just not something that I can just bleh, and then, I'm seen. So here I am making this video. I've been taking a long break from making videos because I just needed to really focus on adulting, kind of reparenting myself, and just figuring out different ways that I can, make an income for one, and just get myself mobile, get a car, all that kind of stuff. And I'm sitting on videos right now. I'm in the studio. If you haven't seen it, here it is. This thing's pretty balla. So, not too shabby. Yes, this is my green sludge a lot of you make fun of. It's healthy, okay? Need to get that in. So, this video is going to be vulnerable. Now the lighting's all... Yay! There we go. This video is going to be vulnerable. Might be lengthy. I've at least got some notes to make it easier. And there's going to be some talk of suicidal ideation. Yeah. So, trigger warning, if that's going to be an issue. There's also parts of breaking through that in this. I'm basically going to go through my life story in a nutshell, essentially. I will eventually write a book. I'm publishing some other stuff right now. I'm definitely not ready to write that book, but this will at least help me in a certain process that I need to go through right now. So thank you for joining and watching. So let's see. Alright, so a little settled. This is going to be stationary for a bit, but we'll go on a little adventure. I'm going to leave the house just to keep it somewhat interesting. But yeah. Man, I really don't want to do this. Okay, so I grew up in Nova Scotia. Born and raised in Kentville, Nova Scotia for a bit, and I grew up very poor. We were impoverished, and we eventually moved with my grandparents into Burt for a year. And then we moved to Truro, and then we left from Truro. But before I get into that, I'm going to talk a little bit about what happened. I moved around a lot because we were poor. We were... This is really hard. Yeah, I might jump around a lot. I might go into... some tangents. It's going to be kind of difficult to talk about, but I'm going to go through it all as best I can. So, yeah, so basically grew up impoverished, and I kind of grew up a little bit popular at times where people would just happen to know me and be like, oh, it's Franklin. It's my birth name, Franklin. Franklin Lloyd Wallace, that's where Flo comes from. Franklin F. Lloyd, LLO, Wallace W. If you want to go into that rabbit hole, there's a whole episode on Behind the Name. I believe it's Fllow'gs, episode 5. And so, grew up, kind of, but at the same time, we moved around a lot. My parents did the best they could with what they had, but they were also very traumatized, and so they were not really available to parent me the way I needed. And yeah, I got bullied a lot for being kind of poor. I also got bullied a lot for being named Franklin and Franklin the Turtle, so have a backpack. Oh, is that your shell, turtle? And so that was kind of traumatizing for me. I decided at grade 2 that I was just gonna switch schools a lot. So, I went to like 4 or 5 schools. I don't know how many schools, but several. And yeah, so I got bullied, and I decided to go by Frankie instead. So I went by Frankie for many years up until into my late teens. Until I decided to go back to Franklin, eventually coming to Flo again. That's in the episode 5. And then I found out that I had these 2 half-sisters that my mom had from another marriage that I didn't know about. And so she took us to these sisters who then, at this point, lived in Alberta, which is where I'm at now. And I had to leave all my friends and stuff, and, I left my biggest crush, who I would go up in front of the class. I was a bit of a class clown, and I would perform these poems for her, embarrassing the hell out of her, and just kind of, desiring her. I even remember in my yearbook when I left, because I was about 13, people were writing in my yearbook that, oh, don't worry, you'll get your chance. So, it's pretty funny. But when I got to Alberta and met these sisters, they're like, oh, how's your dad? And it's like, oh, well, you can just, go ask him. I never really got along with my dad. He was really rough around the edges, didn't have a very good past kind of thing, and he was 19 when he had me. Get into that later. And they were like, no, how's your real dad? And so I was like, what do you mean real dad? And they're like, this isn't your dad. And so I was like, what? You don't know me, I just met you, kind of thing. And so I kind of just put that on the back burner for years, until eventually I did find out that this other person was on my birth certificate. So I'll get into that later. At this point, growing up with my parents, they were just not really supportive. They would leave on trips and leave me home, and so this was kind of really hard for me to deal with. That's one of those trips was when I started to experiment with alcohol and, just become a young teenager. Eventually, I did want to move out. It was just constant fighting, and it was just like too much to deal with my parents. And so around 15, I had a friend, who was going to help me move but didn't show up and was kind of making a joke about it, I guess. And I had packed all my stuff pretty much at the door, ready to go, and my mom came home and was like, "What are you doing? You can't do this. You can't leave. I'm calling your father." And so he was like, "You can't leave, and so I was like, "Okay, whatever, like, I'll just stay at home, it's fine. I'll just, go about my life." And so 16 came, my birthday came, and then the day after that, I was kicked out. So I had no place to go. My sister took me in, my older sister, and I lived with her and my niece, who was about 7 at the time. And so I kind of had a teenage hood because my parents were very strict. I had to be home at like 3:30 every day. I wasn't allowed friends over, kind of thing. So it was very strict, and I kind of got to do that a little bit at my sister's, and I experimented with drugs and alcohol and weed and all that kind of stuff. And eventually, yeah, so coming out of that, I got into my first long-term relationship and moved to Calgary, and so that was, the relationship wasn't right for me at the time. I was too young to know that, and, even furthered some experimentation with drugs like Oxycontin, and there was some people who lived above us in their basement suite type deal, and they were addicts, and they like got me to try it, and I tried it, and I was like, oh, I tried it again, and I puked. So all the same day, and I told my partner, and they're like, no, like, just don't do it anymore, and I was like, okay, yeah. And then I did it every day for months after that, until eventually I got myself out of that situation. And then I also left that partner. I ended up cheating on this person, and I just they found out. I packed up, I left, and that was kind of an overnight thing. I didn't look back. The next person who I cheated with, I ended up cheating on them. And so this time I actually stayed, and I told them and whatnot, and they had a challenge with honesty, and so there was a moment where they're like, hey, like, I'm trying this new thing, honesty, because we had broken up and gotten back together. And I was like, oh no, like, I have to be honest about this. And I shared that, and it was devastating for them, and staying there in that with them, seeing how devastating it was, made me realize what I had done in my previous relationship, and that, like, this was terrible, and I couldn't do this, and I had never cheated again after that. I've been in a lot of relationships, but that was around the time when I started doing, got my first, like, real boy job, and got a job in sales and door-to-door, and so this was very high intensity. This was something that was actually very supportive for my growth, not just like to make a lot of money, but also to like read a lot. There was a lot of reading involved, leadership books, self-help, all that kind of stuff. And so I went on this journey of like really digging into myself. I dug into spirituality and stuff. I go in a little bit again into that in episode 5, Behind the Name. And I was just really digging. I made way too much money for the effort that I put in, and I basically used it as a part-time job instead of a full-time job, and I spent a lot of that time researching. And so I researched into crystals and astrology and blah blah blah, and I would kind of approach these in a way that was objective, and I could, go buy a crystal, have it in my pocket for a few days, kind of see what I felt different, and then look it up and see kind of the connections between that. As I've always been an experimenter, and so this is kind of me tasting life, experimenting, really trying to figure things out. And so I did that for a number of years, and I did really well in this sales job, and so I won many trips. Well, I won 2 trips. I went to Punta Cana and I went to London, England, and I got a drum set and I got an iPod and I got all these things. And so leaving for that first trip that I won, I needed my birth certificate and my passport, and lo and behold, my mom was like, "Oh no, just get the short form, birth certificate, or let me do it," all this kind of stuff. And I was like, "No, that's fine." Like, I was like 21 at the time, 22. I'm like, I can do this. And I'm 32 now, if you're wondering. And so basically when I applied for my birth certificate, it wasn't working, and I didn't think to try this other father's name. But when I did, or actually my previous partner tried it when I wasn't even around, it worked, and then I got this birth certificate in the mail with this other guy's name on it. So that was kind of the point when I was like, okay, this is real. There's something that's been hidden from me. This is why I haven't been this is why my mom wanted to take over the birth certificate or all that kind of stuff. There's been little pieces in my life that didn't really necessarily make sense. And so here I am finding this out. And so I went on my trip and whatnot, and around this time I actually, because I won this trip, I think London was the first one, I decided to go vegetarian, and that was because there was a moment in London that I got like the most expensive thing on the menu because we had this like voucher, and lamb was the most expensive thing. So I got that, and eating lamb and the way it shook, I was like, oh man, this is an animal. This is, So I went down that rabbit hole of trying that. Again, I'm an experimenter, so going into vegetarianism, going into gluten-free, dairy-free, all these kind of things. I did that actually for a period of time. I was vegetarian, ovo, lacto, for like 2.5 years. Yeah, so in that time I had basically, gone through a period of time of being on again, off again, kind of multiple years at a time, trying to be friends with my parents or not. And that was very challenging. It would seemingly work, and then it wouldn't, and I just kind of separated from myself after about 2 years or so. And so around this time there was, let's see, when did I travel? Yeah, I eventually did try veganism, and I went and I traveled. And during this time I was in on-again, off-again relationships. Relationships wouldn't really last more than a few months. Sometimes they would last a year or two. But I hadn't really found like a good group of people that I could connect with. Even in high school, even in high school, it was, I was a misfit, this poor kid, and I was the shortest up until like grade 9. Like, I'm 6'1" now, but I was one of the shortest kids in like grade 8, grade 9. And, that's when I was starting to go to high school in Canmore. And I didn't even really fit in with the other misfits, the other emo kids, if you will. They kind of tolerated me, or would basically describe me as following them around. So, I didn't really fit in very well with a lot of people, even though I did have a lot of value to give. I was very insecure. Um, and I didn't have the support of my parents in many different ways. Yeah, after around the time of the door to door ending, I did do network marketing. And I know a lot of people, oh, network marketing, it's a pyramid scheme. It's not. A pyramid scheme is, it's a pyramid scheme. It has no products or services, and it just funnels money to the top. Basically, that's why it's illegal. There are a lot of valid network marketing companies that, sell products or services or whatever, and some are really good. Some are very trash. And the system, for some, still really feels like abusive almost in some ways, where there is like the top people and they're kind of making, there's something called a stair-step breakaway system that, once you make it up a certain level, then you break off from that upline, or and then you make that money, and it's very ethical. But regardless, I knew I wasn't really going to be in this for a long time. I just wanted the networking ability and the ability to sell myself to strangers, and so I definitely got that, and it was even more intense in the reading and growth than the door-to-door. And, we would be reading together. I had a great group that was connected to the network marketing company that I was a part of, which was, a mentorship group. And so that was very helpful, very good. I didn't really see any money at all. But the amount of growth that I got from that, I was in that for like another 2.5 years. I did door to door for 2.5 years, did that for 2.5 years. It was great. I was doing that on top of sales. So I was making decent money, and I was going out there and talking to strangers and really learning to hone those kind of skills. So definitely glad that I did that. Really helped me to talk to anybody, and that's why I know so many people these days. So after that, I became very depressed. I was, again, in and out of relationships, and I didn't connect with people in a certain way. There was something going on with my brain, my mind. I took a big break from working, essentially, and just like really dove into researching, different mental illnesses, all this kind of stuff, kind of just living life, taking a break back, really trying to figure out how my brain works, how routines work. And I took a big break from work, and, I was researching into these mental illnesses and whatnot, and just basically figuring out how my brain works and what was wrong with me in my mind. That's how I was describing it as. And so in that, I became very depressed, suicidal. There was a Teal Swan video. I know a lot of you hate Teal Swan. I don't really care. Rumors are rumors, or stories are stories. I blah blah blah. What matters to me is that the things she's saying are testable or not. Like I said, I'm an experimenter, and so when I use some of these techniques or healing, properties, or healing, modalities or whatever that she was creating or whatever, then they worked incredibly well on myself and on many people that I've done them with. So, and this is addiction, PTSD, like really big things. So I don't really care what your opinions are about Teal Swan. there was a video about suicide, and some people disagree with this video, but I found it very helpful, is just to go in your mind and that video was about, going in your mind and going through the process of killing yourself. And so I did this process, and I am a believer of reincarnation, and so the guided process was to do this, leave your body, kind of leave Earth, and then what? And you can see the impact of your death with others. This process that would happen, and the grieving and all that kind of stuff, and I think that really affected me, and I was basically just taken aback from that, and going through that process and believing in reincarnation. I don't want to be a baby again, that's for sure. And I was like, I'm gonna do something kind of crazy, and I was gonna travel. My partner at the time, I was gonna travel with her. She ended up kind of not wanting me to. This is also around the time when I started experimenting with relationships. So I started trying different polyamorous relationships and trying out, hierarchical poly, firsts and seconds, and open sexually but not emotionally, and I tried all these things, relationship anarchy, ethical non-monogamy, there's this. I even tried something that I called labelless and agreements. So there was no labels, it was just whatever the agreements were. And there was a lot that I learned. I got to face a lot of things. And that really helped shape who I am. You don't have a lot of opportunities to work on those kind of things when you're in monogamous relationships, so that definitely helped me to alleviate some of those issues. But regardless, one of these first relationships, it was very harsh, and there was some cheating actually, because even though it was open, there were certain agreements that were broken, and so this was really hurtful for me, as I was the one being cheated on. And I was going to travel with this person, but then they were like, no, and then there was another opportunity to go to Oregon. And so I left with $700 in my bank, and my goal was to, do the bad and end my life. And so I went to there, not realizing that the mountains are nowhere near as high or as dangerous as Alberta's, because that was my plan. But so I was kind of faced a little bit to stay there. I was on a farm, I was working there, and that's the first time I had encountered something called heart circles, and just kind of sharing certain challenges or whatever opennesses, meditating with other people, doing this twice a day, and then working on this farm, and that really opened me up. I made enough money to basically do what I wanted to, which from that video that I was talking about, but going through that process, it's like the whole main kind of message from that was that if I could wait a day and I could do that tomorrow, then what could I do with today? And then, I was like, oh, well, I could do this and this, and then I thought about it, and I'm like, well, if I just wait an extra day, then I could do something extra, and well, if I waited a week, then I could actually do this. So I ended up staying in Oregon for 6 months, and then eventually going to Cambodia, which I always thought of filming a music video for my song Meditation, which is like a rap song about meditating, and I thought about filming it at the Angkor Wat. So I went to Cambodia kind of on a whim. I got a ticket for very cheap, and went to Cambodia. I had a friend who was in Calgary selling my stuff. That was going to get me to the next place and the next place, and I was going to eventually work in Australia and then just keep traveling and be a digital nomad. But yeah, and I had amazing travels and fun times, and I was really alive. And I really felt that, and it was great. And I was filming these videos. That's where a lot of these Fllow'gs are coming from. That was the state I was in. And I've been thinking about making this video for a while, but this video is kind of multi-purposeful. And so, yeah, so basically, that person who was selling my things didn't really sell them, and then all of a sudden kind of blamed me, and then kind of just sold all my stuff for dirt cheap and then didn't send me the money. So unfortunately, my older sister did have to buy me a ticket back. And I thought I was going to be living with that sister, but I didn't end up living with that sister. I lived with my other sister, who at the time was drinking a lot, and that was an issue, and I couldn't stay there, and so I left. And I was just kind of house sitting, house hopping, couch surfing. And on my travels, I did find, deeper astrology and even human design. I'm a 3/5 projector with emotional authority. You're like, what the heck does that even mean? Doesn't matter right now. This video is not going to be that long enough to go into that, but it's something that I've dove really deep into, and I now do sometimes host intro workshops or do sessions or readings or whatever for people. Astrology was also really fun at this time because it's another thing I could experiment with. I could make judgments, assessments, guesses, and then I could find out people's astrology after. I started to get a really good idea of some things. And so, I'm a believer of astrology. I don't care if you don't believe it. The moon moves the water, other planets, they've got to do something. So that's my belief. Yeah, don't really care to talk about it. It's not something that people should use as a reason that they can't do something, or that they're just the way they are, if they're, being a dick or whatever. But, yeah, it's definitely a tool that can be used for positivity. And so coming back, I was house sitting. I started going to festivals. I made it back to the community house that I was a part of previous to me leaving. I had brought this modality or method of heart circles and opening up, and some of these people were dealing with the same stuff they were dealing with when I left, and not talking to each other about it. So I decided to bring that and bring it up, and eventually it seemed like it was actually progressing some things, and some other things came up, and I kind of got blamed for bringing the heart circles there, and someone even said that, we didn't have these issues until you came here. It's like, well, you had the issues, but I just, brought them out in the open to be dealt with, because personally, I don't like to sit in, say stillness, but I do like meditation. I meditated for 41 minutes today, but yeah, I don't really like to sit in stagnation. This is a part of all my growth journey and all this stuff that I've been doing. It's a part of me now, so I like to grow, I like to move forward. I feel like I'm a train, like I'm constantly going, and if people are preventing me or trying to stop me from moving forward, then they're just going to get bulldozed or hit by a train kind of thing. And I don't that's not a negative thing. It's just okay, I need to stay on this growth path, and if you're hindering me from that in any way, then it's not compatible. It's not what I want. It's not my desire. So jumping around, it took me a long time to I feel like we've been sitting a while. Let's go. Let's go on an adventure. I should go work this off. Alright, here we are. Nice little view of the city. But, yeah, I gotta figure out where you go. Maybe here. Maybe I just hold you. Haven't you always wanted to be held? I know I have. Okay, so we went on a little adventure. Hopefully the fan isn't too loud. You can probably hear me pretty clearly. I would have drove and talked, but I realized I needed my notes for that, and it was just going to be too difficult to do. So, fast track. Where was I? So I was talking about community and whatnot. After leaving that one community house, then I went on to another that I was invited into, which was really nice. And I mean, there was some other not so great places, but yeah, basically I found a place that I really liked. This was a place that we were doing regular potlucks. It was very community oriented, permaculture oriented. I helped out at my friend's farm a lot. I wanted to get big into hemp. I love hemp. I think hemp is a great resource that we should be using in societies. And yeah, it's underutilized for sure. So I was a part of a lot of that kind of stuff. And eventually, there was a situation where one of the roommates kind of had a mental breakdown and destroyed everything in their room. Me and my partner at the time, who lived next door, was kind of taking care of this person, kind of nurturing them back to health, feeding them, We were making videos. Lux, someone who I've made videos with. You can see some of our videos on YouTube, where this video is. And one day, this person just all of a sudden got an inheritance that we didn't know about. And so they helped us out, because we were in, some sticky situations, and we got some equipment that was very helpful, and we were really making a go at doing a business. And then all of a sudden, this person got involved with some old friends and some old drugs, and they were very irritable, and they basically were unsafe to be around. And so, unfortunately, because this person was related to the person who ran the house, it was really hard for that person to kind of let them be out on the streets, understandably. And it just became too much of an environment to be in. And I had always thought about running a community home, and my partner at the time was kind of a scapegoat, because I was like, oh, we could do this together. And then we broke up as soon as we got into that place, which is where I'm at now. And I've been there for close to 4 years. So yeah, and that kind of started that journey of, being in charge and managing other people and having boundaries that needed to be asserted, so that, I didn't go through another situation like that. Or so this has been a new level of growth for me. And I've definitely gone to a bunch of festivals. Even at the last community place I was at before, and the place before that, that's something I started to do, was to get out to festivals. And festivals are great, big resource of people. It's really fun, it's freeing, yeah, it's energizing. It can be rough at some points, but yeah, it kind of opened me up to some other spirituality too. Some of the smaller festivals where there's a lot of workshops happening, those are great. I still do heart circles at the place I'm at. Every 2 weeks we do them, and I find it so valuable. And I've done them now for several years, and it's been just a very important part of my life. Helps to open things up, keep resentments low, and it helps to build character. It helps everybody to build character, to be accountable to each other and ourselves, and it's just overall very helpful and important. In the midst of leaving that community home where the person had, a mental breakdown and all that kind of stuff, it was difficult because that's actually pretty much the pivotal moment of me figuring out this mental illness type stuff. Through a festival, I was doing something called Vibe Pod, which is basically just like, safe space for people to go in if they're not having a good time, and there's people there that can give resources and whatnot to help those people. And so I was one of those people, and one of the people who I was helping was like, oh, sorry, just I'm dealing with this stuff, and it's my autism, blah blah blah. And I really actually related to this person a lot, and I was like, autism, I never really thought about that, which started that journey into digging into my mental health and what's going on. And I eventually did get diagnosed with autism from the same doctor that person got diagnosed from, Dr. Skinner, the only autism expert in Calgary, who also has autism and ADHD. I was diagnosed ADHD at 5, and I was on pills. That's another thing, is on and off pills. That was a real struggle for my body weight, as I was having issues eating. And I think that learning about the autism, I used to think that autism was just arm flapping and ignoring you and the inability to talk, and they're in a wheelchair and they're it was just not a great image. And sure, there might be some extreme cases of autism where that is the case, but have you been able to tell that I have autism? It's they say that if you know a person with autism, you know one person with autism, because it's so varied. They say it's a spectrum. If you're thinking left to right, or like a side to side scale, it doesn't really work. It's more like a color wheel, where there's lots of different variants of things that can show up, and you might have any scale in that or not. I'm writing a book on autism right now called You're Autistic. I don't know if you can see this. You can kind of see the cover. But most autistic people prefer to go by identity first. Like, I am autistic. That makes sense for me. Some people prefer with autism, living with autism, on the spectrum, just whatever people want, that's fine. And I think another big thing about coming back from traveling was that I was finishing off my vegetarianism with veganism, and I decided to quit that in Cambodia because it's just way too difficult. The only vegan place I was at, an ice cream shop, their ice cream was it was broken down when I went there. So, and when I came back, I did decide to eat meat. I didn't really eat vegetables growing up. I despised them, and so mixing vegetables with meat seemed to do my body good. And then I actually started to work out because I was very severely underweight. At my height, 6'1", I was 115 pounds, and so that's very small. I was very thin, and so I decided to eat meat and work out, and I worked at a gym, and I gained 30 pounds of muscle in 3 months or something like that. Or 40 pounds or something, yeah. Anyways, I got myself up to 150, 35 pounds. And I was there for a while, and then I've on and off again with the gym, and I'm now up to 175. This last couple years has been good for me, just focusing on my health. That's partially why I took off the videos. I was seeing a nutritionist for a while, I was getting in the gym, I was eating better, I was just trying to figure out routines, because with autism, it can be really important for some people to have their routines. And so I was kind of relearning, reparenting myself, doing all that kind of jazz. I didn't have my license. I had my learners for many, many years. I decided to actually get that and get a vehicle, as you can see. And yeah, there was that. And I decided also 2 years ago, around when I stopped making videos, that I was gonna officially stop connecting with my parents. And my mom had kind of denied the whole this other parent up until I got the birth certificate. And then it was like the truth came out one time in a parking lot. I was saying some not so nice things to her, and she was like, the truth is I don't know, and I was like, that sounds like the truth. And then since then she's like, no, he is your father, and then no, it doesn't matter who your father is, and blah blah blah. And then it didn't really matter to me. I understand all that stuff. I just kind of wanted to know the truth. I wanted to know what happened, and she wasn't really willing to give me that. And me bringing it up just made her avoid. And I hadn't received a call from her in years. And my father, the one who raised me, my stepfather, he has just been very abusive, and he gatekeeps my mom, and he's, you can't talk to her, or you can talk to me about it, and so there's no privacy between my mother and I. And he just threatens me with violence. So it's just not healthy, not sustainable. The on and off again, I don't care for it anymore. I used to hide back and not put out art because I didn't want to say anything bad about them. I wanted to give them a chance to really get this connection good, move forward, and then I could say, hey, we had our challenges, but we got through it, and have that kind of story. And that's just not the story. And I know that, if I was to create some art that might sound hurtful, that, my stepfather would probably try to sue me. And if you're watching this, yeah, it's probably no surprise. But yeah, I definitely can't stop doing that, stop expressing myself just to save somebody else's face. And I've given so many opportunities, and it's just not healthy. And the last couple years, not having that family connection. I mean, I have my sisters, and through that biological father, found out I had 4 other siblings who all remember me as a baby. And basically what had happened from all these people's perspective is that my mom was with her ex-husband, my 2 half-sisters' father, and she got pregnant with his best friend, both named Ken, ironically. They are both Kenough. And she left those 2 kids at daycare and left with the new father, and he left his kids to then go live in Virginia. So from Nova Scotia, where was it from, to Virginia. We lived there for a few months. And then she went back to visit her parents, and for some reason she had full custody. I don't know the reasons there, but she called 2 weeks later and said that she's not coming back, and told the guy who raised me, the stepfather, that I was his, and that she was actually in the hospital for the entirety of her pregnancy. And so that happened, and then they left all that situation and, had a life together or whatever. And then all these brothers and sisters from the father's side, the biological father's side, remember me as a baby and remember that I was just kind of taken away. And I even have done some trauma work on myself with memory recall, and because I do a bunch of that stuff through this journey, healing, and all these things have become a part of what I do. And I have my life coaching certificate now, and I've done life coaching and emotional coaching and all these things. And through doing that, there was a memory that came up that everything was kind of in colors. I was as a baby, and it was just a mess of colors. And I remember kind of being with the good people and then being taken away to the bad people kind of thing. And it was like, a good dynamic and then taken away to a bad dynamic. And so, yeah. I'm not really afraid of death anymore. I faced that in Oregon. I really thought about doing it, and I just, it's kind of fun to just have a crazy, ridiculous life, I mean, yes, I do have all those siblings that I'm not really too connected to, and I do have my sisters I don't really talk much with. I have my niece who I see once in a while, who I love dearly. But, separating from my parents has left kind of a big hole for family in my heart. And that's kind of where I've shifted my attitude, the last monogamous relationship, because I went back to monogamy. The last monogamous relationship I was in, when I ended that, then it was because of, the autism. Like, there's something about just having someone understand and have compassion for my brain and its differences, and it's not a mental illness, it's just my brain works differently. And so understanding for that is very important for me, and I wasn't getting fully what I needed, and I've been on that journey of dating and dating in a serious way where there's a lot more that's important to me, and I'm just not willing to compromise on those. So, but it is very important. I've definitely been dating a lot. I'm on dating apps, or I have been. And, it's just, I'm kind of looking for something a little bit different than I was. I used to, my dad would say all kinds of things to me, like, go there and sleep with as many women as you can, and my stepfather, and until you get sick of it, and then get married, and I wish I did that. And then later, if I was with a bunch of women, then he'd be like, you're gonna get AIDS, you're blah blah blah, and that's part of the abuse. But I've since approached things a little bit differently, where it's more important to have that real connection and that depth and that understanding, and have that support and be able to offer that for someone else. And I'm doing pretty good now. I've taken this time, and I've got a lot of things on track, and I don't necessarily need anyone to do fun things, but yeah, I definitely crave that depth of connection and romance, and the desire for family is there. And so I want to build a family, and I've been on and off again with wanting to have kids, or it would kind of depend on my partner what they wanted, and I could compromise pretty much. But now I do definitely want kids, and yeah, I think that would be great. And having a partner that I can rely on, and we are partners, then I think that's really beautiful, and that's what I'm striving for, and it's kind of where I'm at. And I think a lot of this came up through dating, as there's been some connective moments, but the way I was dating, or having sex too quickly, or whatever the reason might be, it didn't really create space for me to have that. So I make this video for a very important reason, and it's because, yes, I'm silly sometimes, or I have some kind of twisted dark humor because of my past, and I can joke about some really crazy things, and I've done a lot of work on myself, and some of the things I might even say might come off as if I'm saying them as if it was maybe an older me, or maybe someone else that someone knows that is, involving with toxic behavior. But I really want people to be seen, because I am very strong. Like, I've been through a lot, and I've been on my own pretty much the entire time. I didn't really have the support of a family. Constantly moving around didn't really allow for longer term connections. There's lots of people out there that can say, oh, I see you, Flo, and I see all the stuff you do, and it's just really hard to be fully seen, fully discovered, fully uncovered. And so I think making this video has been a very important idea of mine to do before I kind of bring myself back into peoplehood, as I've taken a big step back from even responding to a lot of people. And yeah, I think I'm just really truly wanting connection, and to be seen, and to be understood, and to know that I'm pretty intense. I've got a lot of growth in me, and especially like if someone even thinks, oh, there's something off about him, or there's something that he's involved in that's, not healthy, and I'm easily challenged. I will challenge everybody, and people think that I won't challenge back just because other people won't challenge back. It's not true. I love a challenge, and I love furthering myself, growing myself, expanding, becoming more. If there's something about me that I don't see, like, bring it on. Like, I will take that challenge and I will destroy it. And that's how I feel. I'm very diplomatic in conversation. A lot of people come to me to, hey, how do I say this? And I say it in a beautiful way, and that's not how I feel. I feel on the attack. I feel like I'm destroying something. That's just because of how intense and how much energy I'm putting into it. And of course, communication, emotions, all these things are very important. And I'm a human, and I want pretty much the same things that everybody else wants. And hopefully this video helps a lot of people to see me. And I really want to appreciate for watching, as it's been a journey going back and forth, and finally coming to conclusions and tying ends of the story. And I probably missed parts, but I think this is probably the most important video that I've made so far. And so, yeah, again, thank you for listening, and thank you for watching this video. And I have no clue when I'm going to put this out, but I appreciate you greatly. I don't even know what else to say. There's nothing else to say, which is really where I want to be. I want to be out. I want it all to be out in the open. So thanks again, and subscribe, comment, and do all those things. I don't know if I'm coming back to making videos, but you can catch me on Facebook, Instagram, The Flow Show. Flow with 2 L's, because this spells my initials. Episode 5 if you want more details on that. Yeah, watch some Fllow'gs. They're pretty fun. I have still so many filmed that aren't posted, that are ready to be posted, that I just took a break. I needed to be me and become an adult and parent myself and heal, and here I am. I hope you like it.